And Mr. Flores, I had sent you the presentation with the budget, so you should be able to find that in your email.
Okay, thanks. I'll open it up right now.
Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining us. We'll get started shortly. I know I was only notified by Ms. Hamad that she would be running a little bit late. She says potentially 5 minutes. And everyone else also confirmed in joining us today. Welcome, Ms. Malhas. Can you hear me?
Hello, yes, I can.
Mr. Garces, would you be able to share the agenda on your screen? I'm trying to read off of one computer and then share my presentation on my laptop. Are you there? Can people hear me? Oh, thank you. Ms. Malhas and Mr. Israel Flores, if you don't mind checking your email. I'll be sharing my presentation shortly. Welcome, everyone. We're giving our LSC members an opportunity to join us. Everyone within this recent week had notified me that they would be able to make it. I'm going to try to send everybody a quick little text to see if there's any changes. So Mr. Garces, I also just checked the public participation to see if anyone had been interested in signing up for public participation, but I did not notice any additional names. So thank you. This is also going to be on our YouTube streaming on our YouTube channel for outside participants that are outside of our local school council to view as well. And then eventually posted on our website.
Mr. Escamilla, with Mary McCann joining us now, we have 7 local school council members present.
Okay, great. We can get started. We would we can get started. I'm sorry, we can get started. Chairperson McCann, if you'd like to call the meeting to order, and Mr. Flores verified quorum.
You're in mute if you're trying to speak, Ms. McCann.
Okay, that's better, right? Okay, so I call this meeting to order of the Foreman College and Career Academy Local School Council on April 6th we're beginning at 5:07 p.m. And Mr. Flores, our secretary, would you do the roll call to establish quorum, please?
Yeah, definitely. So, Ruwaida Hamad, Lawanda Jones, Mary McCann,
I'm here.
Santa Montoya, if you could just drop something on the chat if you're not able to talk, but I see her on the call. Rufino Sangraviel, Ruth Cruz,
Present.
Israel Flores, present. Ms. Malhas,
Present.
Ms. Woods,
Present.
Anwar Ahmad,
Present.
Mr. Escamilla.
Present.
With that, we have 7 members that mentioned they're here, and we have another one that didn't mention anything, but we see her on the call.
Okay, thank you. So having established quorum, we can move forward with our business. Let's take a look at the agenda. If you have any suggestions for amending the agenda, would you please state them? Okay, if there's no amendments to the agenda, please, someone do the motion to approve this agenda.
A motion to approve the agenda.
Ms. Woods, move to approve the agenda. Do we have a second?
I second that.
And Ms. Montoya seconded. All in favor, please say aye or raise your hand or put aye in the chat. And I say aye too, Mr. Flores.
Sorry, the motion passes. The agenda has been approved with 7 votes.
Okay, thank you. So the new business that we have for this evening, point 4, is the presentation of the school year 23 budget. Mr. Escamilla, Principal Escamilla, sent us the presentation earlier in the day. And I will turn this over to you, Mr. Escamilla.
Okay, thank you. And Mr. Garces, I will now be sharing my screen so you can stop sharing the agenda. I just want to confirm that can everybody see my screen?
Yes, I can.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna be maneuvering through this presentation and looking at my desktop screen as well. So again, I'd like to welcome everybody and thank everybody for making the time to be here to be informed on our school year 2022-2023 school budget. And again, the objective for this is to present formally the budget for next school year, give information to our LFC as you all continue to help make decisions and guide and influence decisions at the school where we utilize our budget. And then finally to vote and pass the budget or a balanced budget, which I'm about to present. So in this next screen, in these next few screens, what I just wanted to share with all of us is basically our North Star. Our North Star continues to be our Continuous Improvement Work Plan, or our CIWP, which encapsulates 3 main priorities. One priority around instruction, which focuses on differentiated instruction within the classroom. Then our next priority is around our multi-tiered system of support. And this focuses on knowing when to intervene with students that are in need, and also meeting students where they're at with tiered support depending on the type of support that students need throughout the school year. But it also focuses on establishing systems and teams here that would support the work of this multi-tiered system. And then finally, our third priority around student voice, student engagement, and civic life continues to be our third priority as a school, so that we can have our students more deliberately involved in making choices, engaging in their curriculum, and being able to utilize what they learn at Foreman to be effective citizens in society. This is just a reminder that our budget is fluid. And so this upcoming school year, we're expecting to see a rise in enrollment. And so when that rise happens, there's always an opportunity for me to go back to work with the district, work with our network offices to ask for more money if our enrollment continues to move up and up. We are expected to see a rise in enrollment next school year, and I'll share that information shortly. Our budget also changes throughout the course of a school year. As we move money and as needs change, the budget may also change. This is where our LSC often gets involved if we need to transfer any funds. After the school budget is approved, I still continue to work with the network and district offices on this procedure called the School Organizational Worksheet, where they look at every single thing with a fine-tooth comb, making sure that all policies and procedures are followed correctly with the budget and the decisions made during this time. So there's a lot of levels of vetting of the process. For example, another step that is not listed here is also my meetings with the School Support Center, who also helps understand the budget that is provided to us, answers all of my questions with potential adjustments where needed, and then followed by our network offices, who then look at the budget to make sure that it also is something that it's balanced and that it makes sense. And so the third step here is our LSC to go through the budget, have opportunities to ask questions, have opportunities to understand it, and then pass the budget. This is just a general reminder of what these types of funds are that we're going to be talking about and that we're going to be seeing within our budget summary. So 115 local funds, again, these are funds that are provided by the district and come mainly from property taxes, or come from our property taxes. Our 115 supplemental aid fund, these are funds provided by the state. And these funds are also funds that help supplement things like mixed purposes, but also supplement things like our bilingual program, special ed program. So although our 115 local monies fund mainly teacher salaries, other funds come into play to support other areas in the school. And lastly, our 332 Title I funds, these are provided by the government, and Title I funds help support things like, and you'll see in future slides, help support things like our parent involvement through our Parent Advisory Committee, or our PAC. There are also funds that we just simply do not have control over, and that are not taken into account within our budget. And this is funding that still supports us, that still supports students, but that is just simply not accounted for within our budget. Some things like diverse learner funding is separately, and also certain positions are also centrally funded, and so these things are not accounted for within our budget. There's a portion of our bilingual program that is not accounted for within our budget that is paid centrally. And these are other examples from other schools as well. Like if we had a preschool in the building, these are things that are not normally funded by a school budget. So here, table 1 indicates our 20th day enrollment of this particular school year 22, that is then used to create our budget for next school year. So as you can see, our 20th day, and this is literally on the 20th day of the beginning of this particular school year, they took a measure of our enrollment, and this is where we stood on the 20th day. They use this number in order to influence the budget for next school year. And so here, and you'll see in other slides, that one of the good things that I want to report is that at this current state of the school year, where we're in the third quarter near the end of the school year, we are currently at an enrollment of 568. So this number was based on the 20th day. Today's current number is 568, so one less than what you see here. And I point that out because that's important. That's important to keep in mind, because that shows that we're maintaining our enrollment, right? We're maintaining our enrollment. And another thing to point out in this slide, because I always want to find the silver lining, and I always want to remain optimistic, because that's important to note. Because if you see here, our 9th grade, this school year, at the 20th day, we had 151 freshmen enroll and come to the school. You always, a sign of a healthy enrollment in a school is when your freshman class continues to be larger than your outgoing class or your senior class. And as you can see here, our freshman class is doing just that. It is larger than our graduating class. So what we hope is that in next school year, we have the same, what we're projecting is that we're going to have the same amount of freshmen next school year, which is going to end up giving us a healthier enrollment and a rise in our enrollment for next school year, which again is a good sign, and which will impact the future budgets. This table, table 2 here, our discretionary fund summary, provides a year-over-year look at dollar allocations, including student-based budgeting, which pays for most salaries. Supplemental aid, funding for multi-purposes, but supplemental in nature, meaning that when our SBB funds are not covering certain funding areas, that our supplemental aid can be used for this purpose. Title I, discretionary, which also aims to support, this also aims to support academics and is connected to connected to our family financial forms. So all supplemental aid is, if you all remember filling out back in the day, they used to just call them as lunch forms. This current school year, and currently we are referring to these forms as our family financial forms. These help also secure funding for our supplementary aid funds as well. And then what you see within Title I is our parent involvement money that goes towards PAC. And so this $4,754 that you see there for next school year, you see a slight increase. Those are the funds that, again, our PAC would utilize to continue to promote parent involvement in the school, parent initiatives at the school, and keep parents engaged at the school. So what you see on the right-hand side is the change in allocation. And so it is very obvious if you just keep an eye on the right-hand side or the right column that we are in the negative $365,000 roughly, or $365, $169 overall. Table 3 indicates our centrally funded positions. These again are not impacted, do not impact our budget. They are funded centrally by our district. And these are 3 core foundational positions, which encompass a clerk, a counselor, and a principal. And then you see a position that we are getting called a core instructional position, meant to support interventions in the school. So we didn't have that this school year, but we are getting this position next school year. Supplemental counselor, we didn't get a supplemental counselor last year. We are getting one for next school year. You see our special education non-cluster teachers increase from 13 to 15. That means we are receiving an additional 2 special education positions for next year. That increase is directly connected to our special education need and enrollment at the school. If you continue to go further down, you see that there are no additional changes to other areas. So in the past, we've received 1 case manager position. We continue to have that 1 case manager position issued to us. We had 2 cluster teachers for our 2 cluster classrooms. We continue to have those 2 positions centrally funded. We have 4 special education classroom assistants. They continue to be funded for our cluster program as well. We have 1 bilingual position centrally funded, which is also continues to be funded for next year. We have an ESL teacher that is meant to impact our EL special education, or our students that are within the EL and special education areas, and that continues to be funded as well. Our JROTC instructors continue to be funded, and 4 security positions continue to be funded as well. There's no change in those areas. Here in Table 4 is a breakdown of our student-based budgeting funding. So again, this is solely student-based budgeting. So this table shows our SBB funding details, which include teacher salary adjustments, our small school equity grant, which is new for us this school year, which I'll share a little more information. And gives a breakdown of the monies that they issue for special education students as well, or students in the least restrictive environment, LRE, that's what it stands for. And then our overall, student-based budgeting funding overall, the overall allocation. So this new allocation that we see here called the Equity Grant Small School Formula Allocation. As you can tell, we didn't receive anything last year within this area, but we're receiving $46,500 this upcoming school year. This is a formula that the school district follows to issue schools additional funding when they drop below a certain threshold. And so that magical number is 600. So if we look up top, I'm going to point you to the area where it says subtotal for school year or for fiscal year 2022, which is this year. So this year's budget was impacted by a previous 20-day enrollment number. And so 2 years ago, we had a 20th day enrollment number of 604 students. And so that influenced this school year's budget. This school year's 20th day enrollment is going to impact next school year's budget. So there's something else that I want you to pay attention to. So here we see the difference of the last year's 20th day enrollment number, which was 604. This year's 20th day enrollment number, which is 569. So we see a decline of 35 students. So that is why we see less money in our SBB, because we did go down in our enrollment this school year. But again, I'm holding on to that silver lining that we've maintained that population, and we are at 568 currently. I also want to point your eyes to the area where it says a one-time enrollment adjustment, 45. So what the district did is they were looking at our enrollment over time and taking into account, again, last year, the impacts of the pandemic across the district. And using a formula, they issued schools a cushion. Another way of looking at this one-time enrollment adjustment, they issued us a cushion of 45 students because the enrollment across the district was overall down during the pandemic. And so that helped us for this particular school year with funding of $268,000, which you see in the gray for next school year, which means we are not receiving that. That was a one-time enrollment adjustment last year. I could have appealed. I could have appealed this if our numbers showed otherwise. If our enrollment was larger than last school year, then I can appeal this amount and say, hey, we want additional funding because our number actually grew from prior years. But I cannot make that argument because our enrollment did not go up. So we have an overall SBB funding of $3,544,111 for next school year. So again, this table 5 is a breakdown of our supplemental aid funding. This is based on our low income enrollment. And so as you can see, we have a higher rate of low income enrollment that went from an 89.46% to a 93.54%. And this also is what is impacted by our family income or family financial form that is filled out every single year. This is why you may understand our strong push when we make phone calls, send emails, send students home with letters when these financial documents have not been turned to the school, because they're very important for us to qualify for additional funding for the future school years. Table 6 and 7 are Title I funding. So here in Table 6 and 7, again, it's our Title I funding, which also you'll see other additional information here, like where we fall within the poverty index, and then the numbers of students that had qualified within this area to give us our Title I funding. And so our overall Title I funding also indicates the parent advisory committee or our parent involvement funding that is issued to us on a yearly basis. Tables 8 and 9 are our English learner allocation details. So here you will see information that includes positions issued or allocated for our EL coordinator or our ELPT, is referred to as an ELPT. That's our EL coordinator. Once we cross a certain threshold, this is table 8 and 9, where you'll see monies that are allocated to our EL program, including positions like our ELPT or EL coordinator. Once we cross a certain threshold with our number of students in our bilingual program, we qualify for getting our ELPT partially funded, essentially, not by our budget, or completely, as indicated here. So we will be having our EL coordinator position funded fully, essentially, because we have a high number of students within our EL program. It also indicates the amount of a stipend that is issued to our ELPT annually. And then again, our bilingual advisory committee, this is the money that is issued to our parent organization for students within the bilingual program, our BAC. Tables 10 and 11 are our special education allocations for enrollment within our least restrictive environments 1 through 3. You will also see here information provided by or providing information on our special education position allocations. So here you see a repeat of some information that I shared in earlier slides, where we see an increase of 13 special education teachers that are centrally funded grow into 15 centrally funded teacher special education teacher positions for next school year. We also see here our EL and special education teacher that is funded for next year again, and our case manager and our paraprofessionals or our special education classroom assistants. You will also see the positions that are allocated for our cluster program. We have two cluster classrooms. These are students with more moderate to severe needs. And we have 2 positions for 2 cluster teachers provided to us here, and 4 special education classroom assistants also provided to our cluster program, identified or listed here on these tables. Tables 15 and 16 are funding from our Illinois Empower grant around 3 years ago. Once I arrived here at Foreman, I applied to have us considered for the Illinois Empower grant to provide additional funding to our school or schools in need. And we qualified, and we've been receiving funding from this Illinois Empower grant for the last 3 years. This is what we will be allocated for our summer buckets. And this will help pay for teacher planning over the summer. And then also what we anticipate receiving from the Illinois Empower money for next school year to be used during the regular school year. We have also been notified that we are going to be receiving funding for a miscellaneous employee that will help with our operational duties or our daily operations here as a school. This is a miscellaneous employee that is centrally funded. Also, this is not necessarily a permanent position. These are positions that are covered by the district, and we are notified similar to how we're notified here that we will be granted this position. It's a miscellaneous employee position. It is not a teacher. I cannot put a teacher here. I cannot put or hire a teacher to fill this position. This would be strictly a miscellaneous position that gets a base hourly rate. Here are the plans that we started to allocate some funds for non-personnel budgets. So this is, again, what it sounds like. It's non-personnel. So these are the things that help us run our school day to day, and funding that we are allocating for the upcoming school year for these non-personnel lines. So what you see here, for example, are the first one that is pulling from certain funds of our student-based budgeting. What you see here that during this school year, we budgeted for $2,000 within our, this does not necessarily mean that this is predictable year to year, but this is what we allocated in last school year's budget, $2,000. Right now, our current working total is $121 left in this area. For our upcoming school year, we allocated $4,321. And again, this money is aimed to help support school office services. So any materials that are required to be ordered or purchased for all of our offices within the school building. What you see here is something called managed print services. We have a contract or new contract with a company called Rico that helps us with our print services, all of our copiers, fax machines, stamp machines, things of that nature that help cover, again, operational, non-personnel needs. In the past, we weren't doing business with this company, so that's why you do not see anything there. But we did previously have debt with a previous company, and we allocated $6,000 from last year's budget to finalize all business with that company and move over to someone a little more reasonable. That company we will be working with, we are allocating $17,000. That again is for maintaining all print services throughout the school year within the building. We also have support and money that we put aside for after-school programs. And so this year we put $21,000, roughly $21,000, $142, and we have $1,634 left. As you can see that we do not have as much money allocated in this area, $1,349, which again, I want to bring us back to that idea of the budget being fluid. And I'm going to share with you in upcoming slides what I'm hoping to do to subsidize some of this funding that we are lacking based on the overall cut that we received in next school year's budget. So we are also putting $19,059 for our maintenance and services for computer and media technology for next school year. We did not have any money allocated this last school year, as we were receiving a lot of support from the district because of the pandemic and technology. But moving forward, we're going to need to make sure that we can maintain that as a school from our budget. We also have monies that go towards our students that have special needs, like students that qualify for our STLS program or our homeless program, and we have $3,000 allocated in that area. And then what you see here from mandated parent involvement, these are all the lines that we have previously allocated funds through our PAC, and so our PAC would vote in the organization and use of their funds. This is how it was previously organized. And we started to also allocate the funding that we're receiving for our PAC for next year in the FY23 column. That's where you'll see the breakdown of all the parent funding as they voted on it this particular school year. Then we see these additional funds where we pull money from the Illinois Empower Grant that we're receiving. We anticipate that we would have to pay for a partnership. Part of the Illinois Empower Grant monies is that we must commit with a partner to continue to help us with professional development and supporting school needs. In the previous 2 school years, we've been partnering with the University of Chicago, who so graciously have made a lot of things available to our schools, to our school, completely for free. But moving forward, we want to continue to utilize those funds with additional partnerships. We don't want to lose our University of Chicago partnership, so we're going to continue to partner with U of C and benefit from the services that they're providing us that are free. But we're also aiming to work with another partner so that we can utilize these $50,000. And right now, that partner that we're trying to work with is a partner that we worked with this school year called Umoja, who offers a lot of social emotional learning training, restorative justice training, and professional development for our teachers around understanding implicit bias. And this is something that we continue to see a great need within our school, because we are not out of the woods with the pandemic, and our students have great needs around social emotional learning. So just a current status overview and some of the decisions that were guided by this this budget is right now our enrollment is only 35 fewer. We have only 35 fewer students on the 20th day baseline compared to last year. But this year, our enrollment has remained steady, and we are at 568, not 570, but we are 568 currently. But we remain steady around that number. And so we are optimistic that once our freshman class comes in, we're going to see an increase in enrollment. I am proud that with this budget, since we really did not see a need to, we did not see a need to impact any type of teaching positions. I'm glad to convey the information that there are no teaching positions that are being impacted by our school year 23 budget. There are supporting personnel positions being impacted, however. There are going to be 2 supporting personnel positions that are impacted by our upcoming budget. Operational funds are tight. As you can see, they're like, I want additional funding in our non-personnel lines. I also want additional funding to help support us in other areas like student transportation, substitute services. The district does cover substitute services up to a certain point for teachers, but then they are the district expects for substitutes to be funded by the school through their budget. And so I will show the upcoming slide on some of the things that we're working on right now. And you see it here. Operational funds are tight, but we're seeking some assistance from Safety and Security, Alderman Cardona, and Network 14 for additional funding. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in the next slide. So we still have our internal accounts intact, so that those are funds that we are not that are not being impacted by our budget, because those are our that's our internal account money that rolls over year to year. The district did lift the pause on rental agreements, so that is also good news for us, because we previously have partnered with the Polish Alliance to offer adult English classes here, and so they would rent out several classrooms at Foreman, and we were the direct beneficiaries of that rental agreement, so we would be able to utilize those funds to impact our school in a positive way. We would also have, in the past, we've also had rental agreements with soccer leagues over the weekend who would rent our gyms to have indoor soccer leagues for little kids in the building as well, which again, we benefited from those rental agreements as a school. And because of COVID, the district had put a pause on that, but have recently lifted that. And so we are going to be able to reach out to our previous partnerships to explore future rental agreements and benefit from that funding. We still have funds to support our professional learning plan for teachers, and that's one of the things that I wanted to share about Network 14 and the district. We are going to be receiving, although we haven't received them just yet. Remember, the budget is fluid, but in the future, we will be receiving funding for our instructional leadership team, and other PLCs to meet perhaps after school, or for additional funding for substitute coverage to send them to professional development or workshops. So we will be receiving additional funding from our district in supporting our teacher teams at the school. as always, we want to continue to keep everything student focused, and all of our decisions are student focused, and then having our CIWP in mind, like how can we continue to make progress within our continuous work plan with every budget that we receive. The ILT, like I mentioned, our ILT is going to be receiving some future funding coming up. So we look forward to that being added to our budget. We are receiving this one instructional coach position as well. So along with our ILT funding, the district aims to give us a position for an instructional coach that can support teacher organization of plans, of unit plans, lesson plans, and provide feedback. And this would be an internal person that would be covered by our budget, but that would be covered within our school, and that would support our teachers, but would be centrally funded, not impacting our budget. There's also one instructional core teaching position that the district will continue to centrally fund, and then one miscellaneous position, which I mentioned earlier in an earlier slide. So we are receiving additional supports from the district within these positions that they're offering us. So an Ocean View budget requests that are pending. So I just wanted to revisit this because this is important. These are things that we are in the middle of, and we are in the works with key people in the district and in our community. One being our Alderman, Felix Cardona. I did share with him the budget provided by the district and the cuts that we're receiving to our budget, and requesting for potential support from him and or potential funding from the Alderman's office that would help potentially continue to fund some of our non-personnel lines. And these are remember, our non-personnel lines continue to help us run our day-to-day operations at the school. I'm also working with our safety and security office downtown, showing them that once we have come back to in-person teaching and learning, that we've identified a great need of support with social emotional learning. A lot of our infractions that are happening at the school are primarily happening within the hallways. So I did not want this budget to impact any of our security team, which it didn't, and I'm very happy about that. But I am asking downtown safety and security to help fund, because of our need, help fund, go from 4 to 6 security personnel funded centrally by the district based on the data and based on the need of the school. They also seemed very optimistic in supporting us in making that happen. So Alderman Cardona also mentioned that he feels confident that he will be able to do something in providing us additional funding as well. So I'm remaining optimistic, but this is also in flux, right? So this is still something that I have not yet confirmed. We have not received additional funding yet, but these are people that I'm working with to help receive this additional funding to subsidize that cut that we received. And then, of course, I mentioned earlier that working with our Network 14 team, that is our chief, our deputy chief, our operations manager, all the people that support the network office, to help find creative funding streams for us. The district did notify us, and this is also going to be supported by coaching that's offered by Network 14, but they're going to be offering us money for our instructional leadership team for this upcoming school year. We just don't know how much and when. But I also look forward to working with our Network 14 team for continued creative funding sources. So I do want to open it up now for any type of question or questions that you may have. I can go back to any slide, and then when we're ready, we can move forward.
Hi, I have a question, Mr. Escamilla, in terms of the substitute coverage,
Yes.
so, and forgive me if you already said it, so that's been a problem in a lot of the schools of even having substitute teachers who are available on the days that you need them. How has it been at Foreman in terms of, have you been able to fill like when you need a substitute, are you able to call and get somebody?
So it's we have our difficult days at times, but this is one of the key reasons that Miss Sabrina Woods has been such a key player at our school, and basically everybody in our front office or our main office. But much to her credit, she's developed these relationships with many of our regular substitutes, and we try to nurture that. Right? We try to answer their questions. We try to provide them with a lot of guidance when they come here. I make sure I personally tell them when I see new faces that I appreciate them supporting us. Thank you for coming to our school. And that relationship building is very important. And it's worked out for us because we do continue to see consistency within our substitutes. This year, with the funding that we had available, we also had the luxury of securing a cadre position, which is someone that would be solely committed for substitute services here at Foreman, but that's only one person. So even though we had, and it wasn't the entire school year, we did have this person for only part of the school year, but the key thing there was the consistency. Is when you pay for cadre services, you're paying for the consistency of having that one person dedicated only to your school. But even then, we did have some times where we would struggle, where if we had multiple teachers calling in the double digits, if we had teachers calling off, sometimes we would struggle. But I would say, and I can give Ms. Woods the floor here, I think I would still sort of rate us in a more positive way, where we had our off days, but I wouldn't say it was completely terrible. Ms. Woods, what would you say?
I'm sorry.
And just if you want to share your opinions on whether you feel or would consider us having difficulties in acquiring substitutes for sub coverage, or what would be your take on that?
Oh, I can piggyback on what you said. I have built a relationship with the subs that we do have, and we try to have some consistency and retain those subs every day, because more than likely we will use them. But overall, we haven't really had a problem with, getting subs. So we've been pretty good.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And I see Ms. Mulhouse has a question. It's in the chat. Do the support personnel budget cuts impact the FCCAs?
Oh, okay. Let me stop sharing my screen for a second. So would they impact the FCCAs? No, they would not. They would not impact our FCCAs. And so to answer that question, the answer is no. And to add a little bit to that, we are based on the support that we're partially based on the support we're receiving from the district and our administrative team. We have a plan in picking up any of that slack of the two positions that are being impacted. Like I said, if we do end up receiving additional funding, those positions can be then reinstated. And so what we hope is that we receive some news soon on potential additional funding or additional help from our partners or the district, where that may change. But at this point, this is not impacting FCCAs, and we already are trying to think through how we would continue to support those areas based that are impacted by the budget with our current personnel.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other question for Mr. Escamilla? Mr. Flores?
Yeah, I was just curious to know, so in the beginning you mentioned the CIWP priorities. I seen like the instruction portion, the multi-tier system. I'm just curious if you could talk a little bit about student voice and engagement. I'm not sure if I missed some of that or how the budget reflects that.
Sure. So, so the student voice and engagement, how the budget impacts student voice and engagement, is that your question, or also or all areas?
That was the one that I was mostly focused because I did some of the points that you mentioned. I felt like it touched on the multi-tier system and the instruction. Just if you could talk a little bit more about student voice engagement and civic life.
Yeah, so it starts with the support of the teachers. So what we've done in last school year, this school year, we had a commitment to have our teachers exposed to information around culturally relevant teaching practices, which would impact student engagement. The idea there being that if we provide teachers with workshops, if we provide teachers with time to deliberately plan culturally relevant experiences for students, that they would most likely be engaged. And so monies are then allocated to provide those workshops, or to free teachers to attend those workshops, or to purchase materials for those workshops as well. This year, our student voice committee, Anwar, if she's still on here, I don't know. I know she was on here earlier. Those are also things that we then potentially would pay someone to man a club for the students. In this case, our student voice committee mentor was Dr. Lopez, and those funds came from our out-of-school time funding, which is not reflected on this budget just yet, because we have not received information on how much out-of-school time funding we're going to be receiving for next school year. But eventually, the idea is that the district provides us funds for us to be able to pay adult mentors or adult sponsors to stay with students and help them continue to flourish in programs like our Student Voice Committee. And then there are, as long as we remain active within our Student Voice Committee, we qualify. If we apply ourselves, we can qualify for things like what the students qualified themselves this school year, is qualifying themselves for this $14,000 or $15,000 grant that they then can utilize to benefit their school. But it's not that the budget directly provides funding to students. It provides funding to the adults, or to pay for the materials that make things happen for students.
Great, thank you.
Are there any other questions? I had one question about the, so going from 4 to 6 security people, are those private individuals? Are those police officers? What's the composition?
Yeah, thank you for the question. So what that essentially means is that right now the district pays for 4 security positions, and 4 security positions are being paid for out of our budget. So we'll have a total of 8 we have a total of 8 security guards at Foreman. But in order to free up and again, try to lessen the blow of that huge cut that we received, I am trying to justify to our safety and security department downtown that we have a greater need here at Foreman. We have 245,000 square feet of building, which is large because a lot of people may think, well, you have 568 students, why do you need help with security? Well, we have a huge building with a small amount of students. We have a lot of coverage that we need to do with our security staff. And I am trying to show within my argument that our need is with security because our security are seeing, the data is showing that our security are the ones that are our first responders to the highest number of infractions, which are happening in the hallways, right? And so, and I compared that to years past and where those infractions were happening far less in the hallways. Now there's a greater need for our security. So I'm trying to paint the argument that I need additional funding to cover and support funding for my security rather than it come from my budget. If it comes from my budget, then I have less money to utilize in other areas. But if the district is able to centrally fund additional security positions, then it frees up money within my budget to be able to utilize in things like non-personnel lines or other things based on that cut that we received.
Okay.
So, and to answer your question again, is that not that we would hire new people or we would change from security to police or police officers. It's where we would retain our security staff, but the funding, the district would hopefully fund additional positions for us.
Okay, thank you. Any other question for the principal?
And so I guess one last thing to mention that's not obvious here is that the budget is balanced. The budget has been reviewed by school support and who supported us in making adjustments. It has been viewed and will be our next step after we would vote here to approve the budget. Then the network office approves it within the system, and it goes downtown for the SOW process, which then is the district with a fine-tooth comb, making sure that there are no issues with it. But I would just need someone to then motion to pass this budget for next school year.
So I move to that the LCS Local School Council approves this budget for the upcoming school year. Is there a second?
I second that.
Seconded by Ms. Montoya. All in favor, please say aye or put your aye in the chat. So we're missing a couple people who haven't voted.
Ms. Woods, are you able to drop a vote in? Santa Montoya mentioned that she was leaving, but she motioned to make the motion.
Aye.
Thank you, Ms. Woods.
And that would be 7 votes. Yeah.
Okay, so if we have 7 votes, then this is carried and the budget as presented is approved by the LSC. Our next point of order is a public participation. Do we have any public participation this evening?
I have this open. Mr. Garces, can you confirm? I see the original 8 from the past, but I don't see any increase to public participation. Do you know can you confirm that are there other additional?
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Garces.
So I don't see like the application. I see so the page that I'm on
Ms.
is
Woods, yours got your mic on. Just an FYI.
I'm sorry, is there anything needed, Ms. Woods?
I'm sorry.
No, I was just wondering, I heard somebody talk, it might not have been you.
Oh,
Sorry. So there would be no public participation, am I correct, Mr. Escamilla?
That's correct.
Okay, and so at this point, if there's no further business, we could entertain a motion to adjourn.
I motion for adjourn.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, all in favor, please say aye or put your name in the chat.
Woods, aye.
I think that's everybody. Ms. Santa Montoya, I believe, left, so I think we're good. Motion carries.
Okay, so the motion has carried to adjourn this meeting. Once again, thank you all very much for coming to this extraordinary session and being able to approve the budget so our students and staff and teachers have the resources that they need for the upcoming year.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, bye-bye,
Appreciate your time.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night.